Welcome to B2B Noble.
That's right, no double speaker gibberish, no talking heads. This is a safe place to talk about what you as professionals in the space can do to look like heroes to your bosses, make sales very happy, bring success to the organization, and that bottom line. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome back to B2B Noble. I'm Liz Brohan, and I'm on my own today. My brother Mark is off, probably speaking at a conference somewhere in the world. So we're going to miss, I'm sure, his multi-part questions that nobody can figure out where to start to answer them. And of course, we're going to miss his celebrity impersonations. But there's one thing we're going to talk about today that I don't even think that AI can impersonate, and that is storytelling. And it's something that your English teacher always loved about doing with you. And we think maybe today some of our brands have forgotten about how to do it. Our guest today knows that better than anyone. With us today is Lindsay Young, and Lindsay is the president of Aspens Marketing. So welcome, Lindsay. This is going to be such a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this.
Excellent. Well, I came up on the creative side of the business, right? And we didn't really talk about storytelling until, like 15 years ago or so. So it not just kind of stuck with us, it really became like the focus, right? And I think that maybe it's starting to lose a little bit of focus. And your discussion here today maybe can help us bring it back, into that focus, because right now it seems like what we really think about is, are we writing the perfect prompt? Are we answering the perfect prompt? And so marketing's kind of getting caught up in things that, are good and important, but not the end all be all.
Right. And I would agree with that. And I think AI is playing a huge part in that, of course. But I think it's not really a new phenomenon, because I think before this, SEO kind of muted storytelling. People are writing for the search engines, churning out content that had no soul to appease, to try to draw traffic to their website, the generic
what a great point.
CRM, right? So I think we've kind of lost what's the word for it? Lost the soul a little bit, forgotten that people are the ultimate recipient of the content that we're creating. And I think that's why storytelling still and always did matter. I just think that a lot of people kind of lost their way when technology kind of stepped in and distracted them. Maybe not a perfect way to put that, but I don't think it's a news story, but I do think that AI has amplified it.
I think you're absolutely right. I thought the point you made about SEO kind of sucking the life out of all of our content to make sure that the keywords, even our websites, they were just all keyword driven. And I still look at some B2B sites today, and I think to myself, what do these people really do? What does this company do?
That's so true. That's so true.
So we'll see if kind of, bringing the focus back to storytelling can maybe correct some of that's gotten a little bit off track. So tell us about what kind of storytelling really does help invigorate B2B marketing.
I think kind of backing up and defining storytelling a little bit, because I think there's very much a place for the kind of storytelling that you see frequently in B2C markets. In the B2B world, I think B2B marketing needs to break out of the idea that they can't be as creative just because they're selling an ERP. But I also think that storytelling is not just about, telling, and I think we'll get into this later a little bit more. But what it really means is that people can see themselves in the content that you're creating, right? And that goes back to understanding what your prospect or your customers really care about, the pain that they're actually feeling, and creating a content plan around that, right? And not just
Right.
thinking, what do we need to sell this product, right? Hey, I mean, the number, and I'm at fault, from a speed perspective, sometimes we just churn out what we got to churn out. But the number of articles I've written about the benefits of the cloud over the last 15 years, the cloud, moving to the cloud, for example, or content like that everybody writes about, but none of it kind of speaks to why the heck anybody should care if their day-to-day is going just fine. Oh man.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, nobody really read a white paper that changed their life, right? And we are moving extremely fast, and you're right. Sometimes that breakneck speed definitely kills some of the quality. And I also feel like a lot of the content that we as B2B marketers put out can be very rote. And you were just mentioning this a minute ago about, can we make it more creative? I'm even thinking about case studies, and how do we make those a little more exciting, and how do we make them more relevant, and how do we put the soul of our customer in the middle of those case studies? Those are some of the things I'm sure you're trying to focus on too.
Absolutely. I'm working with, and I won't give any client details, but I'm working with a client right now who is trying to make their case studies a little bit more. They want us to tell better stories with their case studies. And to do that, they want to go longer form and describe what this is their words, not mine, I can't take credit for it, the messy middle of the tech projects they do with these customers, because everybody knows, it's good to have case studies. They're social proof. You don't have to do too much to get that effect. But if you can also tell a story about what it looks like to actually go through that process, in this case, it's more of a custom project. So, breaking, middle, bottom of funnel type content, and really show them, okay, here's how we dealt with the ups and downs throughout the project. This is what it looked like. Here's some early wins along the way. Really tell that story. Their hope, and my hope too, is, because I'm really excited about this, I don't often get the permission to go as deep as they want me to go, is that that's going to pull a prospect in and get them interested to talk more, right? Because they're being really transparent about what that process looks like and what it actually looks like to work with them, which not a lot of companies, take the time to do. So kind of showing that messy middle of working with them and what that looks like.
It's so funny that you mentioned messy middle, because when we think about projects and getting them started, it feels like there's a messy beginning, and then there's a messy middle, and then maybe the end is where all the sparkle and, stars align to make it come out exactly the way everybody had always envisioned that it would. So, and then I think clients can see themselves in that. They're like, yeah, we didn't always know our goals and objectives, even to get started, and glad we figured that out. And then, of course, the process is always a little nonlinear.
Yeah.
But then the end, should just have a happy ending.
Yeah, and I think by showing kind of the up and down for them, because they do custom tech projects for distribution companies, showing that also makes it less scary for the prospects who, I'm sure have been through the ringer with past technology implementations, right? Everyone's a little nervous.
Always.
So being able to tell stories. So that's a really exciting kind of example, I think.
Can I also just ask you before we move on, I'm interested in, when you said they're interested in long form, I thought, well, that's interesting, because we all kind of tell each other nobody reads anymore. So tell me a little bit about how we better make long form work.
Yeah, I think the problem with long form has historically been that people did it just to do it, right? And I feel like that's a super basic way of saying it, but when you think of the sheer volume of ebooks and white papers out there that really say nothing, right? Or they're just glorified sales pitches, That's you put your email in and you download those and you're like, okay, well, that was pointless. Like that wasn't worth my time. That was not worth giving someone my email for, right? Kind of the old school way of collecting leads.
Yeah.
I think if you're now, my background's journalism, as I've told you in the past. And so I come at this from a different perspective than maybe someone who went to school for marketing and started in marketing. So at my core, I'm a writer, I'm an editor, I'm a researcher. And one of the things that I think needs to happen with long form content is I think it needs to only happen when there's something worth saying in depth. And I think in most cases, that's either going to be something that's research based. So I'm a huge fan, and I don't think enough companies do this, of original research. So surveying your customers, interviewing people who are experts in the market that you are, trying to reach with your product. Maybe going deep with some of the experts in your company to really go beyond kind of the surface and provide something that's actually of value to someone in the market that you're trying to reach, and tangentially, but primarily that market, that they're going to like download and they're going to say, oh my gosh, this is so interesting. Or look at this survey point. It's
so
cool.
Critical.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times we've taken the time to do research, and that's where the big insight came from that positioned a company different than the competition or solved for a problem nobody ever really realized was in the market. So, yeah, from your lips, I think more research, definitely I see a lack of it in B2B marketing, but I think, and hopefully, more companies are catching on to it's a little bit of investment up front, but man, can it pay off big time.
Well, if you're telling those stories, it's not just about creating a great white paper. There's also a big PR opportunity there too, right? If you're literally doing original research and interviewing people in your market and putting together some truly valuable insights to showcase your expertise and understanding of the companies that you're trying to serve, if you're actually putting that together, newspapers, magazines, trade pubs, they're going to eat that up, right? They're going to be like, look at this cool survey data. And then suddenly you're positioning yourself in a very different way when you're telling stories with that perspective.
And it definitely adds credibility, which is what PR is really all about, for sure.
Yeah.
I can remember once we had this big client. We did a huge program for them, push-pull, and we wrote the case study. And a prospective client said to me, "This reads like a Harvard Business Review story." And I felt so proud until he didn't hire us.
Oh, no.
And then I thought, okay, so maybe I shouldn't have gone the whole Harvard Business Review route and instead just told a better story. The fact that he made it through the story is great, but there must have been something that wasn't compelling enough or didn't resonate enough. So those are some of the things that I always think about when trying to write and tell stories.
Yeah, I mean, it's challenging, right? I mean, I will say that sometimes not everybody understands the value of doing that, right? And I think that's part of the problem is that, I don't know as if it's necessarily marketers' fault that, some of this storytelling has gotten lost. I think they don't necessarily have the resources, the buy-in to take the time and invest in this type of content. I think they're being pushed to do a lot more with a lot less. And so I think that's why they're leaning on these other tools, and they're kind of forced not to do as much or take the time to develop kind of better stories for their market as I think they probably want to. I just don't know as if they're being resourced well enough to give them some credit.
Definitely a pain point. We see it and hear about it every day. And AI came along, and it looks like it's going to be this great tool that might take some of the burden and the time constraints off of us. But now it kind of feels like we're using it wrong or incorrectly or not thoroughly. We're kind of letting it drive us instead of letting humanity drive us. So that wasn't a question, but my thought, I guess, was,
That's true.
what kind of tips, because you've nailed it, right? What kind of tips do we have for marketers today who are asked to divide their attention between so many different tools and so many different needs, to kind of get back to put your customer at the center of this and take a breath? Are there other tips they can use?
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts. Going back to kind of the resources that many of these marketing teams have. We work with a lot of companies, some very large, some very small. Some have marketing teams of 4 to 6, some have marketing teams of 1. In all cases, the marketers are stretched. In all cases, they have to fight for a budget to hire someone like us to do, our focus is really on telling those stories, creating that content that supports sales and marketing goals for them. So as an extension of their team, that's what we do. And it can even be hard to get buy-in for, so one of the kind of backing up, one of the tips that I have is there's nothing that says that you can't focus on creating 3 really fantastic articles, for example, for your library on your website versus having to write 2 a week, right? Like there's this false idea that quantity is better than quality. I often say, no, back up. Like I would rather write 3 deep articles on your website that tell the story, that speak to the customer's pain points, and just have those, right? Rather than create in volume, right? And have a bunch of content in your archives that just collects dust that nobody cares about because they open and they're like, why was this even written? Right. So I think there's this false idea. So I think first start with quality over quantity, which kind of shifts your brain when you're making plans to create content to one that's maybe more creative, maybe more depth. It gives you more space to work with. The second thing that I want to say is you have to bring in people at the front end of the creation cycle. So I spend a lot of time, myself and my team, it's not just me. We spend a lot of time interviewing subject matter experts in our clients' organizations. So, last week, for example, we worked for one of the national distributors, and we interviewed 5 or 6 of their sales reps that specifically work with municipalities on selecting and installing pumps. In their water systems. Sounds like a boring story, right? But the impact of having the right pump is massive, especially on the day-to-day of the workers that have to go out if there's clogs or flow issues or they break or whatever. So having a reliable pump. But I mean, we could have just wrote a generic article. This is all still in progress about these pumps are reliable and here's why. But instead, we're talking to the sales reps who are working with all of these city water system people. And hearing like, here's what the customer's saying, here's the problem they were having, this is what we did, and oh my gosh, this was the result. And it's just going to add a lot more color because we're getting these frontline stories from these sales reps. So allowing access to these people, and then the people in charge have to tell these people that it's important to spend the time with us, right? Because it's, they're busy people. These guys were like pulling over on the side of the road because they're always on the road to talk to us, right? So we really appreciate that time, because it really adds realism to the stories that we're telling. So we spend a ton of time on the phone talking to these subject matter experts who are frontline with customers and implementing solutions. And it makes a huge difference. The other piece is talking to customers. Unfortunately, I have a really hard time for some reason with our clients, and I'm pretty sure that marketers worldwide face this challenge. But there's always a resistance to letting marketing talk to customers. I don't know why, but getting on the phone and just asking them all the questions like, why did you select this company? What are the specific problems? Tell me about your workflow around this pain point. Like actually getting that. And what do you actually value versus what do we think you value? Because oftentimes there's a difference there. And if you don't understand that, it's really hard to tell the stories that you need to tell to really connect with prospects.
It does seem like the two things that you mentioned, first off, do some research initially, and then you're talking about additional research with customers. They go hand in hand. That I think B2B companies get nervous about the investment that it might take to allow marketing to, interface with customers. But to your point, it can just pay off exponentially. I've always been a big fan of ride-alongs or just go to a sales meeting. I don't have to be a voice in the room. I don't have to be an interviewer in the room. But if I can be an observer, I can even bring some of that knowledge back to the marketing and make sure that your perspective is unique and really paying off what the customer needs are. So I think that you're offering us a lot of great advice. So keep going. I know you had more.
I'm very passionate about this topic. I think you can tell. The last thing I was going to say, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I think it all has to start with the pain. And pain doesn't necessarily have to mean like it takes me 50 years to do this process. Could also be I'm overwhelmed by my choices in selecting a solution to this problem. What kind of information can you give me to help me do that, right? So there's a lot of ways you can define pain, but it all goes back to that pain. It all goes back to the customer, because without that, how can you tell a story that's going to resonate, right? How can you build a content plan, select your channels, figure out what formats work if you don't really understand what the customer cares about in the first place? We start with that.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about other places to find some of those pain points, because let's say it is difficult to, get in front of customers. Other places in the organization where you can find some of that data are just comments that come into customer service, right? It's not always sales. And it's certainly going to be in reviews. Anyone who takes the time to write a review, they won't always be lovely, but you learn from the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? So It's just one thing to remind marketers to, when we know you don't have a lot of time on your plate, to just ask other departments to send you some data.
Right, because marketing can't do its job well and can't help the sales process if you're not, sharing that information.
Exactly.
I know that seems obvious, but, it does need to be said. I think talking to sales reps is really good. They're the ones having the discovery calls, sitting in on those discovery calls. If you're selling tech or whatever, those are more common. But, I know, we could probably talk a little bit about the role of AI as well. But one thing that I've done has been you could leverage some of those AI platforms to ask it to scrape what people are saying on platforms like Reddit and other websites about certain
That's great
areas.
Advice. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of information online. People are not afraid to share what's
And if
working,
it'll
what's not
aggregate
online.
it for you, that's huge, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
It's very helpful. And then summarize it for you, which is great too.
Yes, well, there you go.
Yeah.
We all need that. Absolutely.
Exactly.
The other thing I was curious about, you mentioned a few minutes ago about quality over quantity. And one of the things I was thinking about, and I would love your perspective on it, is because I agree with it. What else can we do with those quality pieces that we've written, particularly if they're long form? I have a creative director who calls it carving the turkey. Where else do we use it? How else can we repurpose it? How else can we get it out there in front of the people that matter most?
Right. Yeah, that's the other thing that I think the mistake that a lot of teams make. And again, part of it's just because they're stretched. They get it published and they move on, right? But I like carving the turkey. I was just going to say repurposing, but carving the turkey is far more interesting of a way to put it. Yeah, we're a huge fan of repurposing. In fact, I will often plan a content calendar based on that idea, either starting with the bigger, deeper piece and then identifying, okay, we could probably on this topic write an article and contribute to a trade magazine. Let's create the set of social posts to tell the story, right? Maybe a carousel that kind of makes people wind through to read this little tiny piece of this article, right? I mean, there are so many ways to get that information in front of people. And I don't think it should be a set it and forget it deal. And it often is.
Right, right.
I mean, if you're writing something that's truly going to help the customer 90% of the time for B2B marketers who are selling SaaS or who are selling industrial products, whatever, chances are that content's going to be evergreen, meaning it will stay good
Yes.
for, several years. You might need to go back and update it, which I think is really important, and make sure that it's current, make sure that it's still reflects, what, it's still accurate. But if you're just letting it sit there, it's not doing a lot of work for you, right? It's
Right.
only serving the people that come to your website. So the other thing I think too is you can leverage that content to support sales enablement. So you have all your traditional marketing channels, but then, provide information to sales, say, hey, here's this great piece. Here's some interesting pieces in it. You could repurpose in an email, or you could share this data point with this client.
Yep. Or in a PowerPoint presentation.
Here's a slide deck that kind of highlights the case studies that we put in this, the use cases we put in this. So repurpose like crazy.
Even in a thank you note, right?
Exactly. That's such a good point, though, because you don't want to write a great story and then
exactly.
Yeah.
The other thing that I thought was very interesting about what you were talking about AI is we're using it as a tool. It can be such a helpful tool, but how do we use AI and keep it authentic? Are there steps that we need to take as we're using this tool?
Yeah, I think an important one just to start with is not let it write your first draft. Don't just go without having any idea about who you're writing for or why you're writing it, or what you want to say. Don't just go in and say, please write me a blog on the benefits of pump A over pump B, right? we write a lot of very niche things. That's actually pretty broad compared to some of the things we have to write about. Please write me a blog about this, because it'll try, and it has a 75% chance of being accurate. But I think it's really important to not let AI do the thinking for you. So you're going back to doing the interviews, right? You're doing interviews with subject matter experts, with customers. You're talking with the people who are talking to the customers. So you have all this great data, internal data, plus any additional research maybe that you might have dug up. So you're starting with your own set of information, right? Before you even get into leveraging AI. So let me share a few of the ways that I've used AI in case it's helpful. So one of my favorite ways is to upload some of those transcripts and ask AI to extract insights or help me outline articles.
I love that. Yeah.
And telling it to only use those transcripts to do that, right? Don't go and pull from somewhere else. So you're just letting it use kind of a confined set of assets. So they're real interviews with humans, right? We're not prompting it out of thin air. And then I refine and guide that output, right? I'll go back into the transcript and find things. I'll go in and double check that it got something right. So I'm letting it help me organize.
Oh, you're gonna double check the AI.
I am.
Brilliant.
I'm so paranoid about that. I've used AI to help me because I'm just one person. I do have a team. We do edit each other's work, but I still use AI to help me tighten structure, add nuance. I'll upload a draft and I'll be like, okay, here's what I did. Here's the material that I used to write it. Do you have any ideas for improving flow or improving how I presented these stories? And there's always something that I'll take from that. Brainstorming, like, what are other ways we could use the content in this article? I mean, it's just kind of like you're bouncing ideas off of it, right? You're not depending on it to do the work for you. You're still using your brain. I think that's the important part.
Don't you love how it will compliment you for doing something like that? Like, oh, great idea, Liz. I'm like,
oh, that's a wonderful idea.
No wonder everybody thinks AI is their friend.
Exactly.
It's flattering.
Exactly. I mean, I think the key here is make sure that you're not turning your brain off, and that you actually have a reason for writing what you're writing. And a story that you want to tell, and that doesn't get lost in the AI world. So I'm using it as kind of a partner in crime. I'm not using it to write for me or to think for me, but it's been really helpful for me to speed up parts of the process.
Perfect. That was a perfect way to sum it all up too.
Thank you.
So, and thank you for all those tips. I was actually taking notes, so that's great.
Oh, good.
And we wanted to do something kind of fun as we close out this episode with you. And we call it Bull or No Bull. So it's a game. It's like a game show, right? Where I'm going to just kind of flat out say a bunch of statements, and you're going to tell me whether or not you think it's bull. And you can use the word bullshits, or no, that's not bull at all. That is real. Okay, you want to play?
Okay.
Okay.
If I don't agree with it, right? All
yeah,
right.
it's bullshit.
Got it.
You just call us on our own, right? Okay.
Got it.
All right, so here we go. AI will replace copywriters.
Well, so a bull, but I will say that it is replacing copywriters, good and bad. I don't think that's a good direction for companies to take, but it shouldn't.
I agree. It shouldn't. And maybe we're just going through a period of adjustment. Let's hope.
I hope
right?
so. Hopefully the pendulum will swing back.
Okay, this is kind of a silly one, but I'm going to say it anyway. Storytelling doesn't work in B2B.
Yes, and of course I'm going to say bull. You're still talking to humans, and with all the noise in the market today, there's a big opportunity to stand out if you do it right.
That was excellent. Okay, here's another one. Authenticity can be automated.
Bull. Right? Bull, yes.
Yeah, it is definitely bull. I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, again, that goes back to the need to invest the time and the resources in finding the right, and having humans in the mix. That's how you keep things authentic.
Great. And this last one goes right back to where we all started. Marketers should stop writing long form.
And I'm going to say bull on that too. I think I covered that earlier, but I have to say long form content can do very well if it's done well and it's created with purpose and it has something to say. Otherwise, don't do that.
Don't bother. Right.
Don't bother.
Right. Yeah. Make it have heart.
Yes, exactly.
Lindsay, this was excellent. I really appreciate you joining us today. You gave us great tips. It's all going to make our content so much better and so much more real for those folks that we're really trying to, move to act, I should say. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. This was one of my favorite topics, so I was thrilled to join you.
Great. While we're on the topic, let me be thrilled to mention that I'm very grateful for our sponsors. I'd like to thank Embas. Embas is a marketing consulting firm that specializes in change management, content development, and marketing communications, and also the Motion Agency. The Motion Agency was recently ranked the number 2 fastest growing marketing communications firm in B2B marketing in the U.S. So congratulations to them. I hope you'll check those folks out. I think they could be of great service to you. So until next time, everybody, no more bull, and we'll keep at it. Please join us. Bye now.